Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 3 of Cocktails and Conversation, a very sociable 6 o'clock Eastern. A little early, to be honest, in truth, out west where Britney Eurton is, and the perfect time for me to speak easy that is southwest London. This is the hour where we suspend, cheers to you, Brit, where we suspend the notion that we're on day 27 of lockdown. And I just imagine myself in a lovely Manhattan late night location with Britney Eurton, the way that everyone likes to imagine themselves.
With some great Italian food, a nice bottle of wine, great conversation. Yes, I miss all of those things. I've thought a lot about the first restaurant I would go to once we're actually able to go back to restaurants, or first people I would want to see. Obviously, parents come first. But how are you handling the quarantine now and day? I feel like I'm on day 31. I've been journaling a bit because this is probably something I want to remember.
In all honesty, I joke, but actually, we're coping pretty well. You just get into a new routine, don't you? We talked about it last week a little bit. I have 3 under 9s in the house, so they kind of mark the day. Everything is by the staging posts, a bit like our friend from the 21 Club in Manhattan, Mark Tubridy, who joins us now with 2 special cocktails to make this hour. Mark, how are you? How are you doing?
Absolutely, guys. I'm doing wonderful here. Just, working with the internet issues and all other haphazard things that happen on a daily basis here, but hanging in there, excited for this week, making 2 of my favorite cocktails, Martinis and Manhattans, which of course we make loads of at the 21 Club. So super excited to be here, guys.
How long have I been asking for? I know we've only been doing this for 2 weeks, but I'm pretty sure every time we talk, I'm asking for a dirty martini. I can't wait.
I think so. I think there was a lot leading up to this, so it's going to be a good show. How are you guys doing?
We're doing really, really quite well, I think. We're sort of settling into it. You were saying that you've been refreshing us a bit too much the last couple of weeks. You need to give us something with a bit more pep.
Yeah, we started off obviously with the Great Breeders' Cup cocktails, which are meant to be a little strong, but mostly refreshing too. And then last week we were focusing on spring cocktails with all those herbal elements like mints and, citrus. But I think at this stage in the quarantine and all the things that are going on, we all need a stiff drink. So we're going to take care of that this week. We're going to do some martinis, Manhattans, and you're going to be smiling by the end of the show, one way or another.
So we've got the horse names Gentle Muddle, stiff drink. I think we should add to that. We'll have a couple come out of today, I'm sure.
I think by the end of this, we have to have a virtual thing where all of these virtual horses race, and we'll see who wins. But Gentle Muddle, stiff drink, I forgot that.
Nick already knows how to host a virtual race, so we've got the host right there.
Yep.
I'm going with this whole virtual racing thing right the way through the summer. You're still cracking on in the States. Will Rogers Downs, Fauna Park, Oaklawn Park.
Oaklawn Park, Gulfstream Park, Tampa Bay Downs. Big weekend last weekend at Oaklawn Park. We had a pseudo Kentucky Derby prep, obviously with the Kentucky Derby pushed until September. This race didn't have points, but still a key race for 3-year-olds. So look forward to that. This weekend at Oaklawn Park, the Apple Blossom, some sensational fillies and mares have won that race in the past, including Zenyatta and Azeri. So we look forward to that. And just plenty of racing still coming to you on TVG and NBCSN. They just announced, and I'm going to give a push, why not, that they're continuing the partnership between TVG and NBC Sports Network until at least May 31st. So that's really exciting stuff.
You know anyone who'll be part of those broadcasts?
Yeah, me.
The only one. Yeah. March the 31st. That's incredible. And of course, providing a fantastic service for not just horse racing fans, but sports fans who are denied any sport at the moment, either side of the pond. So great that horse racing is flying the flag, and people can have a flutter as well if they so choose, and cheer themselves up with whatever is on offer. Mark, have you been getting a chance to catch any of the racing?
No, not so much. I do have to get better about that. But I'm learning more and more every time I talk to you guys. And, after last week's episode, there was just so much inspiration, so many great stories. So you guys are turning me into quite a fan. So I'm going to take some of my attention off drinks. Yeah, it's true. I'm going to take some of my attention off drinks and really get into horse racing. But, throughout this show, and we've got more coming up this week, we just got such a wealth of experience that we're going to hear from. So I think for all the racing fans out there, it's fantastic. And for some of the novices like me that don't know too much, this is a great opportunity to kind of get our feet wet.
Absolutely. If I seem distracted, my bad. I was on Instagram pointing people to the stream. So
nothing wrong with that.
Full attention now.
We won't take it personally. We want your contributions as well, of course. You've been fantastic the last couple of weeks. Any questions you have for us or our special guest, to whom I'll be making an unnecessary introduction very shortly, but he is the one and only 4-time Eclipse Award-winning trainer, Chad Brown. There he is, of course, joining us. The real Chad Brown.
The real Chad Brown.
No imposters on this show.
Here.
The smile is broad, Chad. How are you feeling?
So I'm not like a famous mixologist and all that, but I got a mango martini right here, if you can see.
Wow.
Look at that.
I think you got me beat at the moment, Chad. I'm drinking my gin and tonic, but yours looks really good.
I got my big boy Camus here. So
he's showing us all up.
Yeah. I'm going to leave my screen and just somehow end up in Chad's screen. I don't know how to do that, but
one of these days, figure out technology. So Chad, where are you right now? Are you in Florida still?
I'm in Boca, and y'all probably wondering, how does Chad Brown get on this thing? He's not doing these things. He got to get tricked on here sometimes. So what happened was, Britney hit me up a couple of days ago and was like, CB, you want to have cocktails that Thursday at 6 o'clock? So I was like, yeah. So I was running around trying to figure out what I was going to wear. I was just going to get somebody like $500 for a haircut, because I haven't had a haircut in like 2 months. And then I got called for this Zoom rehearsal yesterday, so that's all right. So I'm on here. We can talk horses.
Well, it worked, right? I gotcha.
I've got to confess, I'm feeling a bit offended. I thought you were just coming for me.
I can't hear Nick at all.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
Well, I told Chad that you were going to be there for the cocktail hour, and he said, well, you don't even have to come. I just want to talk to the one and only Nick Luck. So, I mean, there was some love for you there.
Have you got me now, Chad?
Hear him.
Have you got me now?
We had this issue yesterday with Javier Castellano. He couldn't hear Christina Blacker. We were doing an I Am Horse Racing live there, and we had to remove him and then add him back in. So that might be the case with Nick Luck as he disappears. Chad, you're in Florida now. It keeps it live. Keeps it popping.
Yeah. Yep.
Nick, are you back?
I'm back. I don't know whether you can hear me, Chad, but I'm back. No, he can't. I'll let you guys chat. I'll hop out of this. I'll listen if anyone else can hear me, or perhaps you can't at home.
I can just relay your questions, Nick. But let's start it off with.
Yeah, I got one more guy to block you, and then I'm gonna have some cocktails with you. See, I blocked Nick Luck.
It was all a part of his plan. So Chad, you're in Florida right now. I know that your two daughters are in New York. How difficult has this been for you, obviously, with trying to keep your stable up and not necessarily running, because we don't have too many places to run, but just fill us in on how you've been adjusting to everything going on right now.
Yeah, it's been really hard because I can't really leave. If you leave and try to come back, you're going to have to do 2 weeks of quarantine. And, I have all these horses, majority of my stable's down here, majority of my staff. So, I got to keep an eye on what's going on here. And every day's new news, a new plan. And, the clients, expect and deserve real-time info. So I've been here, and luckily, with FaceTime and Zoom and, all the things we have now, luckily you can get by with being quarantined or far away from your family. So it makes it a little easier, but I'm anxious to get home.
I mean, what's been the most challenging part for you? You have so many people under your employ, and we don't have racing right now in most jurisdictions. We talk about so much how the economic engine behind everything that happens in the morning is racing. So, I mean, what's been the most challenging part for you?
The most challenging part's been, luckily, it hasn't been like health issues or anything like that. All our staff's been healthy, which is most important. Okay. But really planning the beginning of our year really at Keeneland and Aqueduct April 1 every year. And that's pretty much when the cancellation started, has been just devastating for us for, reasons for, developing the horse's value, earning prize money and bonuses for the staff, and revenue for the owners. And then, of course, just overall sort of focus for everybody, because when you don't know where you're running anymore, it's easy for, our staff and such, and even the clients and even me a little bit, to lose a little bit of focus when you don't know where you're targeting anymore.
Right.
So that's been the canceled major meets been the biggest problem for us.
How have your owners handled everything?
Good. I mean, I'm lucky. I have, super clients. There's so many of them, and they're most of them have dealt with highs and lows in the game, and this is new. Yeah. But so far, we're not that far into it either. I mean, it's been tough when you look at it. There's been some big cancellations. We haven't been that long out of racing. So, but if it was to go on the whole year or something, I think then it'd be a different conversation.
No, definitely. Nick, you're back. Can we hear you yet?
You might be able to hear me, Brittany. I don't know whether chat.
Gotcha, bro.
Yeah, you got me now, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our technical team, who are based at quite literally 4 corners of the globe, all together. Mark's going to kick us off with the first cocktail of the evening, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is our first cocktail?
Our first cocktail is none other than the Martini. So when we think of iconic, we've got to get Brittany involved here.
Oh, stay.
I'll do a little spiel while you get situated. So when we think of iconic cocktails, right, there's one drink that stands above the rest. And of course, we're talking about the Martini. It even has a type of glass that's named after it. And really, there's no other cocktail that has made such an impression on our culture over the past century than the Martini. It's in literature. It's in film. There are tons. Look at Brittany go. This is awesome.
I am so ready for this.
And it even has yielded some fantastic quotes over the years. So one of my favorites, which relates to its potency, comes from Dorothy Parker. I don't know if you know this one, but she said, "I like to have a Martini, 2 at the very most. After 3, I'm under the table. After the 4th, I'm under the host." So, so that's speaking to the strength of the drink. Now, luckily, we're only going to make 1 today, so we should be okay. All right, guys. So we'll get to how to make the Martini in a second, but a little background knowledge. So,
hey, Mark, just before you crack on, in your club, is there a limit to how many martinis you are allowed to drink? Because I know at least one establishment in London where they are so strong, they will only let you have 2, I think 3 at the maximum, because it's essentially 5 measures of booze per martini.
Yeah, we do not have a set rule, but as a bartender, it's always your job to keep an eye on the guests. You whether things like how much they've eaten, how they're kind of changing their behavior. But 3 seems to be this universal kind of agreement amongst everybody, and it's probably because everybody's had that experience where they're like, "I'm sure I'm fine with the 4th one," and it never is a good idea. So I would say 3 is really the number that you want to stick with.
I like to kick off the night with a dirty martini, but then just 1 and then go to wine. I don't know, for whatever reason, start off with the dirty martini and then switch to a bottle of Camus.
Yeah,
it's a good choice.
Well, I think that's kind of like, I don't know if it makes sense in racing or if there's a parallel here, but I think you need that kind of explosive start sometimes to the race, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going out for a night out, I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. You get that little boost to get going, and then you kind of ride it out with the wine afterwards. So I think that's a good game plan.
A sharp break.
Yeah,
all right, well, let's go. I'm ready. I even stuffed some olives with blue cheese, which I know you're not a fan of. That was a pain. That was an absolute pain.
And that is absolutely a huge popular thing right now, the blue cheese stuffed olives. But the Martini has undergone so many different variations since it first came about. And the Martini was actually one of the first drinks, like its cousin, the Manhattan, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on, to first combine spirits like gin and heavier spirits with wine-based aperitifs like vermouth. Now, the original Martini recipe way back, or the early ones, would have called for sweet vermouth, strangely enough, and it would have called for other things like absinthe and maraschino liqueur and orange bitters. But of course, the version that we know that has really stuck and stood the test of time over the years is the drier version of the Martini, which is simply gin and dry vermouth. Now, of course, a lot of people like vodka, and today we're going to be making it with a fantastic Tito's handmade vodka. And of course, people like yourself, Brittany, you like your Martini's a little dirty, so we're going to add some olive brine to it. So the first thing we always want to do when we're making a Martini is chill our Martini glass. So add some ice.
I don't have one.
Okay, that's fine. I would still add some ice to that glass because this drink is best. Yeah, best when it's served ice cold. So because we're going to be stirring it and then straining it off of the ice in our mixing glass, we want our glass itself to keep that drink nice and cold after we've strained it. So if you pre-chill your glass, that's always kind of a good go-to tip. All right, guys? So now to begin with, Brittany, we are going to start off with 3/4 of an ounce of olive brine. So if you have some olive brine there.
Is that olive juice?
It's olive juice. Yep, you can strain that right off of your favorite bottle of olives.
Guys, never made this before.
The same thing.
Yeah, and you don't have to get too technical with this. It all depends on your taste. So if you want it a little extra dirty, you can give it a heavy hand, or if you want it just a little dirty, just give it a splash. But I think about 3/4 of an ounce if you have your measuring device there. All right.
So there's two sides, and I'm learning with you. Is it the top one?
I would say I would do the bottom side, and I would go about 3/4 of the way up on the bottom side. Yep. So we're going to do this together. All right. So we've got our olive brine going into our mixing glass. And now, very simple, we're just going to move on to our Tito's vodka. Now, here I'm going to do 3 ounces for this. So we've got about a 4 parts vodka to 1 part olive brine ratio going on, but you can change that again. I would say your larger side, so flip it over. I would do 2 of those pretty much to the top.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to do a side-by-side taste test when this is over.
Oh, I have a strong chance that yours will taste better than mine.
No, I don't know. I think you underestimate yourself. All right. Now, I did not forget about the vermouth, but we're going to wait just a little bit on that, and I'm going to tell you why later on.
Hey, guys, I don't have ice in this cup. Do I need ice in here?
We're gonna add ice to it right now. So that's a good point you bring up. It's always good, I think, to start off by adding your ingredients to the mixing glass or the mixing tin and then add the ice afterwards. Because I can't tell you how many times when I'm bartending, I'll be making something and then a customer needs their check right away and I have to pop away for a second or I get a phone call. So once you put it on the ice, you're going to start diluting it. So the clock is running. But if you do it like we did without the ice, you can decide when you want to add that ice and start stirring, which we're going to go ahead and do now. So let's go ahead and add some ice to our mixing glass or your tin.
What are you using there, Britt?
Ice from my freezer.
No. What are you using to mix? Have you got a cocktail? You've not. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Look at this. I've got a whole set here.
Wow.
You got everything but the glass. You got
everything but the glass. I know, everything but the glass. Couldn't find a martini glass, funnily enough. Okay.
So, Brittany, so now we're going to stir. So do you have a stirring spoon with you?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So what I want you to do is insert the spoon down into the glass, in your case, the tin. And our goal is to have the back of the spoon next to the inside of the glass or the tin. We want to create a barrier between the ice and the tin or the glass itself, if that makes sense. And now we're going to do this smooth clockwise motion. All right. And we're going to start chilling this down. Now, while we do this, while we're stirring, I think we're all thinking something, which is, how does James Bond like his martini? Shaken, not stirred, right?
Yeah.
So Richard Pearson says, Mark, can we agree that a martini should always be stirred and never shaken?
Yes, I agree in one sense, which is common mixology and bartending thought is that we should stir spirit-forward cocktails, that is cocktails that have all alcoholic ingredients like martinis, Manhattans, and Old Fashions. And the reason why we do this is because basically we're controlling the temperature and the dilution in a more precise way. And more importantly, we're not aerating the cocktail. So we're not introducing any bubbles into the drink. And that's going to make sure that our...
That's on number 2.
Yeah. The finished cocktail is going to be transparent and it's also...
limit here in both.
Now, the second part of answering that question is, at the same time, there are some people that would like those little chips of ice. They don't mind it being a little over diluted. They want it as cold as possible. So if someone comes up to the bar and they ask for a shaken martini, it's their preference. And if that's the way they like it, I'm happy to do that as well. But I do agree that the best way, in my opinion, to make a perfect martini or a great martini is by stirring it, not shaking it. So we're definitely...
I feel like you're so seamlessly stirring this, where all I'm trying to do is keep the back of the spoon to the back of
Well, it's kind of a swivel motion too with your fingers. We'll get into details maybe.
All right, I'm learning.
All right, so now we are going to toss
I would have
out
left the bar already, dude.
the ice
I would have been
in the
see you
glass.
later. It's taking too long.
There you go. Well, that brings up a good point. When you stir a cocktail, you do have to stir it longer than shaking. So you can chill a cocktail down with shaking in about 15 seconds. It does take longer to stir it. So, Brittany, at this point, if you have your dry vermouth there,
Yep.
into whatever glass you're gonna strain the martini, I want you to put just a little drop of vermouth. Just a little drop. Yeah.
Okay.
And what we're gonna do is swirl that around. All right. Swirl that around and then discard that. Now, basically, this is more of an in and out style of martini in that we're putting the vermouth directly into the glass, swirling around, and then tossing it out. And the original dry martini recipes would have called for much greater proportions of dry vermouth to the spirit. But these days, a lot of people don't really want to taste that vermouth. So I find that method of the in and out actually is a great default, and we can always kind of adjust from there depending on a customer's preference. All right, so at this point, we are going to strain our cocktail into the glass. So if you have your strainer there you go.
I don't think I have a strainer. Oh, there. Okay.
Maybe it's built in. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I do want to hear that question, though, Chad, or the answer to that, how Structor came up with the name.
All right, guys.
Okay, so.
Structor?
Yeah. And the
that
last
was
thing
one question.
we're going to add our olives.
I don't have a toothpick. We're gonna steal
right
with
in
it.
there. Now, the one thing is that we try to do odd number of olives, and I don't know why, but they say it's bad luck to do even numbers. So if you're having a martini on the day of the races, stick with the odd number olives. It's going to bring you some extra luck. But that is our dirty vodka martini.
Look at that.
Cheers to it. All right, guys.
Nice
Cheers.
job, Mark. Nice
Thank
job.
you very much.
Good.
Oh,
Cheers,
now
guys.
the true taste test.
Extra dirty. Tons of questions coming in for Chad. A lot of them about horses as well as the cocktails.
Oh, it's good.
Does anyone want me to make my third martini before we
Yes.
get deep into the questions? Fans?
Yes.
You want me to go through the- I
But
want
Walter wants to know how the name Structor came about. Not the only man.
It's
Tasty.
so the majority owner, Jeff Drown, is a big construction business owner in Minnesota. I think he's like one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, in Minnesota. And it's some term for construction, Latin or something. That's the way I understand it.
So Structor.
How is he?
Go on,
I was
Brett.
going to say, how is he doing?
So Structor had an airway issue. We needed surgery on. That was the problem. But we had to stop on him. So it's been done. He's back training at Stone Street in Ocala, and he seems to be doing okay so far. So those things are a little tricky when they come back. Some of them come back really good, and other ones, you don't really know. It's more challenging for him.
This is a nice question here about Lady Eli or Bricks and Mortar, asking, do you miss training Lady Eli or Bricks and Mortimer? Well, you haven't had too long to miss Bricks, but I guess they both mean so much to you for different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I miss them both in the barn. I miss training them a lot. It was hard to see them. Anytime you have a really tough horse, right? It's hard to see him walk on the van the last time and leave. We have a lot of footage of like their last day galloping or whatever. Sometimes we pull up, but Lady Eli, I was more relieved to send her out, even though we miss her a lot. It was just so much pressure from what she came back from, and there's always that risk if something happened to her, and we just so there was a little bit more relief that we made it to the finish line, if you will, and off safely and all that than Bricks and Mortar. But both of them was just big shoes to fill. You may never fill them again.
Ronnie Luch has asked an interesting question. And actually, I got asked this earlier on Facebook from a guy called Steve in Seattle, who says he's good friends with a couple of your owners. What do you expect out of Flop Shot this year?
Flop Shot. Whoa, he's doing his work over there. New shooter. Looks good.
Ex-Andre Fab, right?
He's all dressed up and nowhere to go. He was ready to go to Keeneland and run an allowance race and then kind of go on to there to some big stakes. So I like the horse a lot, and it's another one we're just waiting on. He was one of many victims from Keeneland being canceled and Aqueduct.
I mean, I think that's interesting. How do you keep these horses in? How does your training regimen change? I guess you could say, because you don't actually have a set race in mind with all of these tracks being closed and you're not sure when they're going to get back up and running again. I mean, how do you alter your training while keeping them somewhat in training?
That's the most challenging you just asked, especially for the ones that were right on ready to run. The ones that weren't quite there yet, we still have a little bit of time, even though racing might not happen right away. But the big decisions are the ones that were ready to run. What do you do with them? You don't want to completely stop on them. You don't want to breeze them every week. Then by the time they run, they have 19 breezes. They're probably going to get hurt in one of them. So you just sort of got to. I'm pumping the brakes a little bit, not breezing them every week anymore. I know they were dead ready to run. When the race does come, and I train them on to go, I'm hoping I still have them right there, but I had targets in mind for months in advance, and I had them right there. It's like, when you're training horses at this level, it's like painting. And if you're painting and you start with a canvas that's empty and you're painting and you know exactly when you're going to finish, and then someone tells you, well, you got to paint a little bit more. You just do it. And you don't want to screw the painting up. It's done. But you're sitting
it's ready.
There,
yeah.
Brush and paint and the canvas and nothing to do. So you got to be careful. That's sort of what it's like with horses like that. I think the top horses, you can overdo something.
They just said, got to do the
I love it.
Mega Martinis after training.
I'm too nice of boss. I'm too
I love
nice.
it.
All right, I won't think about it.
That does look good, I gotta say.
It does look really good.
Oh yeah.
It's a little bit of a very fruit forward drink, more than I would expect for you.
It is. So what I did was I have a little fresh mangoes puree. You like Grey Goose orange vodka. No disrespect, Tito's. If Grey Goose isn't there, I go to Tito's, okay, with a slice of orange. Little triple sec in there, so a little bit. And then I crush a little lime juice in there. And then, in my presentation, I can't be, when I heard you were on here, Mark, I had to step it up and put a little something on the rim there.
You really did. That looks fantastic. I got to say I'm a little envious. Yeah.
So these are going down pretty good. I may have to take a break and go make a third one. I'm not sure I want to get into the Canis, but I don't know. Is anyone drinking any big reds over there? No.
Well, we kind of got into this thing for Nick drinking Chardonnay, because Nick loves a good white wine. So I feel like I've kicked off the show with a Chardonnay, and it's early here. I feel like I can't really drink red wine until the sun goes down. Weird rule I've given myself.
But I am making cocktails with Mark Tubridy next week. Don't worry about that. I'm getting out of this room. I'm getting into the kitchen. I'm getting my shaker ready, and we're gonna get cracking.
Shake it up, Nick.
We're gonna shake it up. Mike Smith last week was our guest, and he kind of kicked us off with the charitable part of this broadcast, which we're continuing right the way through, probably the summer, the fall, and however long Thursday nights take our fancy. But we're trying to raise money for 3 really important charities as part of the Breeders' Cup's charitable initiative during the COVID-19 crisis. www.breederscup.com/donate. Let me tell you a little bit about the 3 charities we're donating to with your help. The RTCA, you'll probably be familiar with, the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America, an organization who ministers to the spiritual, emotional, physical, social, educational needs of the workers within the horse racing industry. So supporting all those people that Chad was speaking about, so integral to the success of the game at the top of the show. We're also supporting the USBG, the COVID-19 relief campaign, bolstering the Bartender Emergency Assistance Program, which Mark spoke about a lot last week, and also the Restaurant Workers Relief Program, which applies not only to restaurants across the country, but also to those workers in the concessions all across the racetracks in the United States who will not be working even if racing's taking place behind closed doors or with no fans, as it might well do right through to the meat of the fall. So, Mark, 2 very important charities in your industry and all important charities in our industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know so many people in the hospitality industry that are relying on fantastic charitable foundations like that. And, it's a tough time because other than this, how do we do what we do? We can't do it in the context of our homes. So, a lot of people have been very creative in doing these kind of online happy hours, and I thank you guys for the opportunity to invite me on. But yeah, these foundations are incredible. So guys, please be generous, support them. They're supporting us and keeping us going so that we can get back behind the bars once this thing settles down, and make you drinks in person again.
So
absolutely.
So what did Big Money Mike do? What did Big Money Mike, they call him? What did he do last week? 1,000 for what?
Yep. 1K he donated.
1,000 each. CB 1,000 each. Okay. And every guest from now on is going to do 1,000 each to all three. I'm going to savage you on Twitter. I'm going to dog you on Twitter.
Hey, listen.
That's great stuff. So $3,000 from Chad Brown donated. That's amazing.
3,000 each. Okay. Everyone needs to Mike's my boy. He's the lead off. It's okay, Big Money Mike. You're my boy. Everyone's got to do 1,000 each, or you're going to get trolled big time. All right.
Challenge has begun there. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Because Chad, I know Mark touched on the hospitality industry and what a hit it's taking during these times. But Chad, I know that you can speak on the many men and women on the backside and how challenging this is for them, not having the racing, where again, that's where they get their bonuses, or that's how so many trainers keep their employees there. It's difficult, I'm sure, for many trainers trying to keep on their entire staff without racing.
It is. So I told my employees, all my full-time employees, is over 200 at the start of it. Nobody be laid off, no pay cuts. I don't care what we have to do. I don't care how much money I have to go into that we've saved. And that's what we're going to do. And fortunately, we've been able to do it. We're in position to do it. Not everybody is able to. I understand that. But with our company, that's what we're doing. And they deserve it. And, we're just going to get by. And it's one of those things that no one saw coming. And I think everyone needs to make a sacrifice. And the people that have more need to give more. And hopefully it'll be over soon.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you for the generous donation.
Yeah, here.
You're very welcome. You guys be my eyes and ears in case I don't see something. Okay. All right. I'll be right on them.
Chad, you mentioned Twitter, and Scott Smith says, geez, it's so cool to see Chad Brown loosened up. Well, I mean, I've seen you loosened up before, but the race fans and the racing public see an intense competitor, and quite right too. But are you someone who can relax and shut the door when you need to relax and shut the door?
Yeah, I'm all business. I mean, it's a high pressure game. There's a lot on the line all the time, and certain times, I'm a very serious guy, so it's not a phony thing. That's how I am.
No, I know.
People around me know that most of the time I'm pretty focused and serious. I don't say too much, and I just kind of zeroed in on what I'm doing. But occasionally I like to relax a little bit and let down and have a different side of me.
So how have you been unwinding during quarantine? For you, is it watching a good show? Is it drinking some good wine? Zoom happy hours? What does Chad Brown do to let loose a little bit?
It's not too much. I've been working out a lot, so so I've been doing that.
What, like lifting weights, running? What's your jam?
Oh yeah. I have to I gotta get I was gonna get my Keeneland bot on. Now it looks like Saratoga or even later than that. It could be Breeders' Cup bot. I don't know. But we're working on that. And there's not a lot to do. I mean, just sort of trying to plan and, you Zoom and, FaceTime. You go on Twitter maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this Twitter thing. Is it him? I
think that's a fair. So are you confirming? Are you confirming, Chad, that this is you on Twitter?
The real Chad C. Brown.
I'm confused.
Is that you?
Would I have enough time to do it? Could I even operate Twitter? Is it even on my phone? I don't know. There's the app on my phone, but then I see there's some real content on this. It looks legit. So I don't know. I don't know where I stand on it. I don't know where I stand on it.
So if it's not you, do you like the content that's being posted as the real Chad Brown? Are you as funny as this Twitter account?
It looks like him. The guy I know, it looks like him. It sounds like him. But I got to see a little bit more.
And there was some powerful, very powerful busting of the Bradley Weissboard balls on the real Chad Brown's Twitter account.
Really?
Today. There really was. It was a
ball busting, you say.
Yeah.
Really? With a gift? Did I gift him?
You gift him.
Calm down a little bit, my boy. Relax. Calm down.
Oh.
Yep, it's Chad Brown on Twitter. It's inconclusive. We're gonna have to follow up on this one.
I'm trying to figure it out right now. So I need to see a little bit more content. You know?
I mean, I've got trainer Mike Pipey saying, "Come on, tell us the truth. It's you, CB." All right, we're not gonna get an answer there.
If it like my man Bobby Frankel used to tell me, if it quacks has feathers. I know it's an old saying. Quacks has feathers, walks like a duck, and more importantly, hangs out with other ducks. It could
probably a duck. I think this is a great segue to Frankel stories. What do you think, Nick?
Oh my Lord!
We've only got 25 minutes of the show left, but bring it on.
Whoa! No, we're going overtime here. Bobby Frankel stories. Whoa! All
right.
I think I told you one time. I have a funny Frankel story. So this guy is so brilliant, a little crazy, but you have to be a little crazy, right? To do this job, you got to be a little crazy. Pay horses 7 days a week, right? So one time, I'll take a couple. So one time, Frankel, he owned a horse. He bought it. He might have bought it off of Judd-Mont. I think he used to buy like their lesser horses. Whatever. He owned a horse, and the horse during like the winter, spring, or something, it won a few races. Like went through its conditions. It was cranking along, doing pretty good. He was never going to be a stake horse. He made a good buy. I mean, he was making money with this horse. And then it got to the summertime, and the horse was with me. And I think I was at Churchill then, and he was like in Belmont, Saratoga route, and I was going like Churchill to Monmouth that year. So he was getting ready for Saratoga meet, and he was like really focused on all the big horses. And this horse came up, and he had been winning. But I said, look, we need to run this horse for 40,000, 50,000, something like that. And he just doesn't have more conditions. He's not a stake horse. He's not real sound. Like he's gonna have a problem sooner or later. Cash him in. Like he's doing well. There's nothing wrong with him. But I'm saying like down the road, the horse is probably gonna end up being like a lower horse. Yeah, he got attached to these horses. He's like, I don't know. I like this horse. He's winning. Why do you not like him? I said, I'm not. I'm trying to do my job. Like I'm telling you, you're not paying attention. Like this horse has no conditions. Run him for 50,000. So then he kind of went back and forth with me. So finally, when he called me, he says, what do you want to do? I said, enter this horse in here. He's arguing me. I said, Bobby, I know how to like gig him a little bit. I said, Bobby, I heard you were like the king of the claimers. You ran them down their throat. You ran roughshod back in the day and all that. You don't even want to run this horse for 50,000. You own him. All right, put him in. I'll show him. Put him in. I don't care. You're right. Put him in. So I put him in. The horse won. The horse was galloping out, and he called me. He didn't say thanks or nothing. He just said, hey, did they claim him? And I said, I'm looking. I said, yeah, they took him. I told you they were going to take him. I told you made a mistake. They're yelling at me, this guy. I said, well, what about, hey, just hung up. I said,
yeah, like he still won.
This horse won like 4. He won like 4 or 5 out of 6. I mean, this horse was winning. And I was like, man. And he made like, got the claim. I don't know if it was for like 50. He got a purse. It was 30 something. Like 80 something thousand. He made like 300,000 on the horse. And I couldn't believe he was like mad at me. So I was like losing sleep over it. I was like, I want to watch this horse every day. I want to see. I forget who took the horse. I was watching. It breezed like once or twice. I never even saw it enter it again. So I stopped watching it. I said, this guy's never going to bother me now. So like down the road, like it was like Breeders' Cup time in the fall. And I was sleeping, and all trainers sleep right next to their phone, right? If anything happens, like all trainers sleep on their phone. But if you're an assistant trainer, you sleep like on your phone because you have no life. Like assistant trainer, you're like in your phone sleeping. So I was like right here, and if anything happens, a colic, whatever, and my phone rang. It was like 2:30 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I remember phone ringing. And it's like the middle of November or something, and I picked up my phone. I saw it was Frankel's cell. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why is this guy calling me? So I remember sitting up in bed, And I was like, I like cleared my throat. Like, I don't know why. Like, I always want to be like on attention for this guy. Like, who the hell would be up at 3 a.m? I'm thinking of it like years later. Like, why would stupid guy do that? I was like, yeah, hello. He's like, yeah. He goes, I told you. He goes, that was gonna do well. See, you need to listen to me. I go, what horse? And he said the horse's name that had gotten claimed. I was like, wow, sitting up going, what are you talking about? He goes, that.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh, we lost him at the punchline.
Whoa, my internet did something weird.
Oh.
Weird. Am I back?
We got you right at the punchline.
You're back, right at the punchline. Yes.
You're back.
Yes, did that on purpose. Yes, I'm internet savvy, this guy. So I want to tell you something right now. This guy was like, I told you this horse was going to do this and that. So I said, Bobby, so I started apologizing. I'm like, where did you see this? I'm sorry about this. He goes, I just saw it. Where? Because I just saw it tonight. Like, you know, you didn't start listening to me more. So I said, I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't, you know, I thought the horse was going to go bad. So right before he hung up, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I had my bearings. I go, Bobby, where exactly did you see this race? This is 3 a.m. in my bed. He goes, I don't even know where he is. He could be in California. He could be in New York. I don't even remember where the guy was. He goes, I go, tell me, because I know I watched this horse and he only breathes like twice. And I never saw him again because you terrorized me. I want to know where you ran. And he goes, this long pause on the phone. He goes, I was effing dreaming. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And he hung up on me. What a crazy guy. That's how much. This guy had like 20 grade 1 horses in his barn at the time.
But he's dreaming about his claimer.
Yeah.
It's Murderer's Row. This horse that he
Oh
had.
my God.
He was dreaming about it, this guy. He's a little crazy.
That's hilarious.
I love him.
Gosh, that is so good.
He was always
plot twist. It was a dream. Well, I think people are dreaming of Manhattans, right?
Oh yeah.
We got one more cocktail. Mark,
I know,
you need
I
to bring
am.
us one of
Can
Manhattan.
I go make another mango? Is that okay if I leave?
Oh yeah.
Go for it,
Yes.
Dad. Go
Oh,
for
you
it.
come back.
You know, because I've been drinking this.
Don't cut me
I've been
off.
drinking this dirty martini, but as you guys know, I'm not a big fan of olives. So I am going to say that, and I'm going to move to my favorite drink ever, which is the Manhattan. Now, a well-made Manhattan, you can still taste the boldness of your favorite whiskey, but there's just enough vermouth and bitters that it tempers it. So it's a smooth and just a really, really delicious drink. Now, the Manhattan was this interesting kind of development in cocktails because up until the time that it was created, which was in the late 19th century, we did already have a vermouth cocktail, which was basically a vermouth-based drink that was very light and delicate. And of course, we had our whiskey cocktail, which was kind of like an old-fashioned that was very popular around the time. But there was really nothing in between, right? So this was very strong and this was very light. So eventually, towards the end of the 19th century, somewhere in Manhattan, perhaps even in the Manhattan Club itself, was invented the Manhattan cocktail, which was the first thing to bring those two elements together. So we can still enjoy our strong whiskey, we get the nuances of the vermouth, but there's a beautiful harmony and balance between the two. And it wasn't until the Manhattan that shortly afterwards, we saw other combinations of spirits and vermouth in cocktails like the Martini that we just made, which became popular afterwards. Now, in very early recipes for the Manhattan, it actually doesn't specify the type of whiskey. There's the mango Martini, ready to go. It actually doesn't specify too often the type of whiskey that you should use. But in this area, especially pre-Prohibition, we can assume that was probably rye whiskey. But these days, we use any variety of high-quality whiskeys. And of course, Maker's Mark is a fantastic go-to. So
how do you know? Does it say on the label? Does it say on the label whether it's a rye whiskey or do you just assume?
Yeah, it always has it somewhere there. So even on Maker's Mark, you'll see Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. I'm going to try to hold that up. So quick kind of recap. Rye whiskey has to, at least in the United States, it has to have at least 51% rye in the mash. So that's kind of all the ingredients that are going together, which is going to be fermented and then distilled. For bourbon, it has to be at least 51% corn in the mash. So bourbon tends to be a little bit sweeter and rye tends to be a little bit spicier. So rye does work beautifully in a Manhattan, but I love bourbon as well. But you're right, you can see it on the label. Here this says straight bourbon whiskey. What that refers to is the fact that it's been aged for at least 2 years. So the word straight means that it's been aged for at least 2 years. All right? So when we build a Manhattan, we are going to need some of the similar tools that we had for the Martini, because we're going to be stirring it again. So we're going to need our mixing glass, something to stir with, our spoon, our strainer, and then we'll need Maker's Mark, sweet vermouth. So we were using dry vermouth in the last cocktail.
for the Martini.
Right. So remember, we were talking about that, I think, in the first week. Basically, what vermouth is, it's fried as wine. And the biggest difference between dry vermouth and sweet vermouth, they both start with white wine, believe it or not, but sweet vermouth has
Nick
caramel.
Luck, you hear that?
So sweet vermouth has that caramel at the end. And we are going to need some aromatic bitters. Now, traditionally, it would be, not even traditionally, but most commonly, Angostura bitters, most common. But I'm going to be using some Fee Brothers bitters, which are beautiful and have some great cinnamon notes to them. We are going to need, again, you can either use the same type of Martini glass that we had for the Martini, or I like to use a coupe glass for this. It's really elegant.
A coupe glass?
Coupe glass, yeah. I think this is the one that they say.
I feel like that's a good name for a horse too. Coupe glass.
Coupe. Yeah, let's work it in. So this is the glass that I think is supposed to be modeled after Marie Antoinette, I think, her figure. I think that's what they say.
Interesting. You're always full of these fun facts. I love it. Keep it coming.
You know, I was up last night just reading cocktail history to bulk up on this. Maybe too much, though. Tell me, you cut me off. Just like I cut people off.
I like it.
I'm talking too much. Nick, you cut me off.
Chad's using all this info to make his next mango martini.
Yeah. I know.
I'm going to switch it up. I'm doing mango tonight.
We saw the comment that
hit you with that Manhattan. I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think we saw the comment that the mango martini is now officially going to be known as the Chad Brown. I think that came across.
He likes that.
I did see that. Kind of like the Arnold Palmer, they said.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And to circle back, I don't know if we got. I think we had a young viewer that was hoping you might say hello, Chad. A young 7-year-old, I think Nathan.
Oh yes.
Nathan, I'm giving.
Can we give a shout out?
I'm giving Nathan a shout out. I'm giving my daughters Ava and Andy a shout out. Ava's texting me a little bit right now. Your mango martini is virgin. All right. None of the alcohol in it. Grab one of those back home. I'll be home soon.
Awesome. All right, guys. So for our Manhattan, we are going to start with a couple dashes of bitters. All right. Now, bitters are another one of those ingredients, just like vermouth, that I think people are kind of intimidated by because they don't know exactly what's in there. Like, what is this, a magical potion that's in the bottle? You know, you don't know. But essentially what bitters are, I've made them at home. It's a lot of fun, is a high proof alcohol that's infused with bitter barks and roots, things like cinchona bark, burdock root, a lot of things that sound like it comes from Hogwarts, and also some flavorful compounds. Yes.
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so you said the magic word.
If you saw the amount of spices and things that I have in my closet, it's like wormwood, all these crazy things. But also some flavorful compounds like citrus peel and spices go into it. And then there's typically a little bit of sugar that's added as well, kind of balance out that bitterness. All right, so kind of demystifying bitters a little bit. It's a great way of adding depth and kind of complexity to your cocktails, okay? So we're gonna move on to 1.5 ounces of sweet vermouth. Here I'm gonna be using Martini and Rossi, but if you happen to have, and I know we talked about this before as well, if you happen to have Carpano Antica, that's a fantastic, elevated, high-end version of vermouth, which will take this cocktail up another level. And
we like that?
Yeah. Of course, we're going to do our Maker's Mark bourbon. We're going to do 3 ounces of this. So
I have to say that Maker's Mark makes the best bottle. Like in the sense of, yes, their whiskey is great, but the bottle is beautiful. I don't know if there's any story behind that, but I'll be researching it after. Yeah,
I think they're all hand dipped too. I mean, I don't know. I've seen that in the commercials, but yeah, it really is beautiful. All right, so what we're going for here, guys, is a 2-to-1 ratio of whiskey to vermouth. I used to play around with that myself, and guess what? I went back to the original. 2 parts whiskey to 1 part vermouth is perfect, and just a couple dashes of bitters. So just like the Martini, we're going to add ice. We are going to stir this cocktail. Maybe I don't know, Nick. We have to figure out what we're going to be making together next week.
Yeah, Nick, do you have a cocktail of choice?
Well, my cocktail of choice would be an old fashioned, but we made that week 1, and so I'm good with that now. But any variation Mark. I'm happy to give it a try. So
maybe we do a Sazerac cocktail.
Love it.
What is that?
Sazerac cocktail. It's of the old-fashioned sort of variety, but many people say it was the original cocktail of the United States. It was created in New Orleans. It has Peychaud's bitters. Originally, it actually had brandy, and then now it's often being made with rye, particularly Sazerac rye, a little sugar, and it does have absinthe, an absinthe rinse. So it's a great, it falls line with the old-fashioned. So that could be a fun one to do.
Where I'm going to get any absinthe from at the moment during lockdown, I'm not sure.
That's the thing.
I'll try.
And you and me both, because if I don't have it. All right,
we can bring Chad back on for a later episode to make his mango martinis with us. Maybe switch it up. Can it be like a raspberry martini, maybe?
He's going to be the featured mixologist, I think. He's going to edge me out.
Samuel Dirth says, what a terrific concept this is. If only there was someone to play piano softly in the background. Well, I've been trying to persuade one of the people in this house that can play this piano to come and play it, but one of them is way past her bedtime, and the other one is a bit camera shy.
So, do you think maybe one of these weeks we could get lovely Laura to play for us?
I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen in due course.
Awesome. All right, guys. So we just finished stirring our cocktail here. As I mentioned before, my wife actually makes a great Manhattan. So I'm a very lucky man. We were saying in another episode that drinks always taste better somehow when someone else makes it for you. So I can vouch for that. Another funny story is that on my mom and dad's first date together, my mom asked my dad to order her a drink that wasn't too strong. So what did he order? A Manhattan.
No.
Which is not, that's not what she was expecting. But, they're still happily married after all these years.
Yeah.
So he must have known, what he was doing.
Mark, you know what they say? If you make it with your left hand, it feels like someone else is making it for you.
That is
all right. That is very true. I would make a massive mess if I tried to make my left hand, so not a good idea.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead.
Having some audio issues, but we'll get him back later.
All right. So now finally the little cherry on top, or the bottom rather, we're gonna add our maraschino cherry. I actually like the brandy cherries, but again, during quarantine, you take what you can get. The maraschino cherries are a little more classic anyway. Guys, I might be biased, but I will tell you the best place in New York City to have a martini or Manhattan is at the bar at the 21 Club. So once we reopen, I would love to make this, guys, for you in person. But in the meantime,
I would love that.
Brooklyn. Cheers, guys.
Wow,
cheers,
Mark.
Cheers
with the rest
Thank
of
you so much.
My dirty martini. Chad, I don't know if Chad can hear us now, but Chad,
can you hear me?
You can. Have you ever been to? He's back in the action. Have you ever been to the 21 Club where they have the jockey statues lined up outside? Have you ever been there?
Yes, I have. I've been there one time. It's a great place.
How long ago, Chad?
Wow. It's probably been 8 years, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. I started about 7.5 years ago, so we may have missed each other, but it really is. It's a piece of New York history. There's the beautiful tie into horse racing, but it's more than anything else, it's a family. So when you walk in,
famous hamburger there, right?
Who is that?
They have a famous hamburger.
Oh yeah, the burger is amazing. It's a signature blend of beef. As with any other restaurant now, we've got a great bar menu, fun things for people to share. So, I've said before, but it's not as kind of stuffy as people think. It's a really relaxed place. We know your name when you walk in. We know what you're drinking. We try to have it on the bar before you get there. So,
all right, you have the Chad Brown ready.
That is my type of place.
Yes, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Mark, thank you so much.
As always.
Cheers, guys.
Mark Tubridy from the 21 Club in Manhattan, coming to us live from his beautifully appointed, I always want to say loft, but apartment in Brooklyn. And managing to keep his little ones out of shot as well, which I always think is a tremendous achievement at the moment. Well, we're all on homeschooling lockdown.
We have so many questions for Chad.
Oh, just too many questions.
Too many.
Chad, we got one here. Walter says, can you walk us through the final preparation for your starters on the morning of a Breeders' Cup Saturday? 15-time Breeders' Cup winning trainer.
That's easy. I walk them. They don't go to the track.
But what about your preparation? How do you get ready for a big day?
Horses.
No, you yourself. How do you prepare for a big day?
Everything's out of my hands at that point, pretty much. I mean, I just got to make sure they get to the paddock and saddled and calm and all that. So, but really, I feel at that point all the work's out of my hands. Like I told you earlier, if you painted something and you put it in a show, you know, and you put it out there, you just hope nobody knocks it over at that point. That's how I think.
All right, so you're
over. Don't screw it up. It's ready to go.
This is a great question.
It is a good question because everybody knows you, but very few people know how you got into the game in the first place.
I just walked in the gate. My parents took me to the track when I was a kid at Saratoga.
Because you're from Mechanicville, right?
Mechanicville, like 20 minutes from the track. Nice small community, and everyone knows each other. Everyone's parents knows each other. You're not going to get away with too much. And we grew up in the picnic area. The same spot we sat when I was 5, 6 years old. In between my races, we go back there and we picnic still. I walk right through there with a suit on. I'll sit down. People remember me when I was little. And I sit there and I'll have a sandwich with my parents and hang out. And I still do that. I love that about Saratoga. It's the best part about Saratoga.
If you could win any race at Saratoga, what would it be?
Of course. Any race in horse racing. I'd like to win the Travers. That would be me.
Over the Derby?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
I'm telling you, over the Derby. If that would be me returning everything back to my family, to the community up there, to everything I did growing up, is to say, you know, and to younger people, you can do it if you want to do this. Because horse racing is a big deal up there. And growing up, it was just the August place to be. But now it's extended, and it's just a huge part of the economy, a huge part of the culture of the city and all the surrounding cities, which I grew up in. And I have a lot of people that reach out to me, a lot of young people want to come to the barn and see the horses and whatever. And I see there could be another future trainer. Who knows? You don't have to grow up in Kentucky, in Ocala, in Europe, around some of the big horse areas or wherever. You could be from anywhere. And I think Frankel taught me that. When I worked for him, I learned everything about training horses. But I also learned that there was no limitations. I used to ask him, how did you get started? I walked in the gate over there, he said. Over there. I walked in, I was a hot walker. I didn't know anybody. I was a gambler. So when I heard that, and I had worked on the racetrack before, but when I heard that and I saw how well he was doing, it gave me the confidence to say, hey, then anyone can do it if he can do it.
Is that what you would take away from him? This is a great question from Talis Finney. Being with the late, great trainer, Bobby Frankel, what is the one thing that you learned from him that you use to this day in your training regimen?
It's a few things. Patience. Stick to the basics. Don't overreact to situations. Like right now, we have a major situation. I was thinking the other day, Frankel knew so much. And remember, I worked for him at the best time when he was the smartest. Right? I didn't work for him. I worked for him in the last fourth quarter, you know, and he was at his smartest, at his wisest. So I got to like really pick away. He wasn't a guy to like talk to you or hold your hand and teach you. I had to watch him and observe. But he was I learned down the road, his own way of teaching was a good way. He made you kind of like work for it. Mm-hmm. And what would he do now? Like, this is like, he knew, he saw so much. He was an encyclopedia. He knew if there was a problem, he'd blow up and yell a little bit and whatever. But then he'd like regroup and he'd be like, this is what we're going to do. And we do it. This right now, what we're dealing with was much different. I just think, what would he do? So I try to think about things he would do and try to do them. Patience and like stick to the basics. You know, he told me one day, don't be a hero. Don't be a hero. I remember that, you know. He's right about that.
Oh, he's a legend. Do you think that he's the greatest trainer in the game ever?
I do. I think all around, I'm really biased. I'm really biased. So he to me, he is. If you ask me the question, and it's not fair because I think I'm still young. I think so. So I'm not like
you're young. You're right. You're younger. You're younger than me, which makes you young.
Okay.
In my
I
opinion.
don't know a lot of trainers. I'm not going to say the trainers I don't know. Like I grew up like maybe going to the track when I was a kid and all that. Mm-hmm. I saw trainers, but trainers that I know work around. If you have to take Bobby out of there, all around, like the guy, look, he won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He won races, you know, going a mile and a half on turf. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we try to do, right? We have horses, it's dirt,
try to do it all,
short, whatever. But if you take that out of there, for me, Bob Baffert on dirt is the greatest trainer on dirt ever to me. He knows his horses so well. And the thing about him is, I watch, and Frankel taught me, I said, how do you train European? Or how do you learn if you're a claiming trainer? I watched Charlie. I didn't have to work for him. I watched this guy. I watched that guy. He used to tell me. And even when I was working for him late in his career, he watched other trainers and he used to say to me, do you see what they're doing? We need to try that. We need to try this. He was always moving. I'm going to tell you something else. When he hired me, the day he hired me, he said to me, he goes, listen to me. I'm going to tell you one thing. If I train horses now the way I did in the 70s, 80s, I'd never win. Remember that.
You have to adjust.
You got to keep moving. But Baffert, the thing is, if you try to do what he's doing, you can't do it. He has a feel and he can do things with those horses. I watch him. I admire him very, very much for training dirt horses. And I think he's just remarkable about having a feel of exactly where he is with each horse.
I saw an interview with, go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just going to ask, you mentioned Baffert and how brilliant he is as a dirt trainer now. And in part, you've answered the question. But if you weren't a trainer, if you were an owner, and if you were one of your big spending owners, who would you have horses with?
You sound like Jim Acosta, whatever his name is, in the Trump.
Hey, Chad, just reminding you, my dad's a trainer.
Course, like, tough question. I was like, what are you, wise guy? Be a wise ass?
Pour yourself another mango martini and answer the question, man.
No, open up the Camus.
Come on. What do you say? We're opening the Camus now? Come on.
Open the Camus.
How long is he stalled for here?
This guy in the Rose Garden here, Britney. This guy from CNN, fake news guy.
Just say Peter Eurton. Peter Eurton, and you move on.
Peter Eurton, probably.
You gotta know how to say his last name. Eurton. Come on.
You know what I do?
Come on.
I spread them out.
Go on.
I think there's very few trainers. This is not a pat in the back thing. You know, you got to be able to train multiple kinds of horses, you know? And I think that I would try to put the horses with people that specialize in what we think that horse is. But horses surprise you too. You start off one way, it's a young horse, you think one thing. I didn't think Lady Eli was a turf horse when she first stepped in the barn. She didn't have a pedigree for it. But as we trained along a little bit, I determined like I would definitely run her on the turf. She's good on it. But anyway, but you'll no more wise guy questions.
So Baffert on dirt. If you had a grass horse, who would you send a grass horse to?
Wow.
Yeah, because in an interview, Chad, Bob Baffert called you the king of turf. What do you think of that?
Well, that's easy for him. He hates turf horses. Easy one, Bob. Big deal.
That's not a Britney. That's not a compliment. Calling him the king of turf is not a compliment from Bob.
Bob, you're good with your game. It's obvious, the king of turf. Bob, come with something new. Come on.
But don't you think it's partially owners give him dirt horses? Right? You've made a name for yourself as a strong turf horse. Does that bother you? Do you want to be turf horses?
He doesn't want turf horses, and the way he trains them, he'd have no luck doing it. He'd suck doing it. He's the greatest I ever saw on dirt. Bob, you're the greatest. You're the great ever. And I could sit there and work for you for 3 years and not train exactly the way you do and do what you do. You have a feel. You saw. He knows it. He'll say it. He doesn't want them. And that's good.
So you have grabbed the moniker as being one of the best turf trainers, if not the best turf trainer. And I'm sure because I know that you want dirt horses as well, and you've done really well with dirt horses. But I before we get to that, I want to take you back. You've had such a prominence in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. Can you take us back to 2008, your very first Breeders' Cup victory? Just that day before, leading up. Yeah, Maram in Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. Like, take us back to that moment before, and then the victory.
Frankel was there. He was there.
Oh, wow.
And it was my first year training. And, we took a shot with a horse. I only had like 10 2-year-olds that's all I had the whole crop that was given to me my first year. So people that think like, oh, you leave Bobby Frankel, like you have a zillion horses on your lap. We didn't. We started with like 10 horses, and we started to build it. And then the 2-year-old crop was only about 10 horses. And luckily this horse came into our barn. And the only reason is because this owner, Saud bin Khalid, he was an owner of Frankel. He ended up owning Royal Delta later. And Mott and Frankel were his main 2 trainers. He split them up every year. But this filly was like a $9,000 buyback as a yearling, and she was real crooked and no one wanted her. So he gave her to me, because when I worked for Bobby, I was always very nice to this man, you know, and I guess that's a tip for younger people coming up in the game. You never know who's going to give you something, you know, he was a nice man. He deserved to be, treated well and such. So he used to call me sometimes when horses were my division, and he was a nice man, and he gave me an opportunity that really helped my career get started. And so we took a shot, went out there to Santa Anita, and it really helped me having worked for Frankel, that even though it was my first time and no one really probably knew who I was or whatever, I had been here before. So I knew this was the first time they had this race, but in a big race like this, in a Breeders' Cup race or any big races.
What were you doing right now?
I thought maybe I got beat. I wasn't sure. And it's so funny, right? It's my first year, and Aidan O'Brien and I are in a photo, right? And then this many years later,
it's still,
he comes over, and I have it's really my stable versus his stable for a majority of the turf races in the Breeders' Cup every year. But that was the first year that I was training. And I guess when you look back on it, that was the beginning of sort of a friendly rivalry that's today.
Hey, can I ask you about Newspaper of Record? Because probably the most impressive Breeders' Cup winner I've seen in a juvenile race since Arazi in 1991. What's happened?
So last year we tried to get her to stretch out. And after that first race at Churchill where she got beat, we sort of lost a little bit of control of her. And going longer probably wasn't the thing to do. But in America, really, there's mile races for 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds and up. The 3-year-old program's really geared towards going longer, up to 1.25 miles. The turf Triple Crown, even 1.5 miles now. It really wasn't for her. We tried to let her do it because Frankel told me something. I asked him one day about the filly U, and I think she won the Spinster, and U was really a 7/8 to a mile horse. I said, how do you run her here? And he said, because any horse can run any distance based on the competition if they're that good. It doesn't mean it's their best distance, but they can win. And I tried that with her because I thought she was just so much better, even if she wasn't a 1.25 mile horse. But as it turns out, she wasn't, and she didn't cooperate at all mentally. So we just turned her out. We brought her back, and I'm really excited about running her. But now we have nowhere to. She's another one that's ready to go. Training kind, calm, looks good.
You've got Sister Charlie coming back. I think this was huge for fans of her because I think our stars retire pretty early. And I think that that's what's difficult for fans is they don't really have anybody to latch onto. And I know last year wasn't her year, but for her to bring her back, I thought was such a sporting effort by Peter Brandt to do so.
Yes.
How is she?
She's doing super. Now, she had a little more, this whole pandemic situation is not affecting her at all because she needed extra time. More than we thought or would have liked. She didn't have any surgeries or anything, but she was just needed some extra time, some remodeling and such in her ankles. And Peter's, he's a great sportsman, and he brought her back for 6-year-old year. And as did Saul Kuhlman and Mike Dobb and Rob LaPenta on Uni. That's another one. And like 6-year-old horse. These owners are normally like Peter's a breeder, but these guys are traders. I mean, they don't breed, so they're going to buy more horses. To race those 2 horses at 6, Bob Edwards rushing fall. He doesn't have to race her at 5. She's coming off a bad race last year at Keeneland. He did it. So I'm really lucky that I have a group of owners that are real good sportsmen, and they love seeing their horses race, and they understand that they don't know when they're going to have the next one quite as good as this. And look, we don't know if they're going to be quite as good this year, to be honest. I've had horses. Stephanie's Kitten came back at 6 and won the Breeders' Cup. But not every horse does that. I've had horses come back at 6 and not want to run anymore. So it's a risk, but I'm happy they took it.
You talk about the owners that you have in your barn, and there's some incredible owner breeders, successful businessmen, titans of industry. One thing that unites them all is that they're incredibly successful people, and they expect high standards. They expect success. Do you just have to be very good at training racehorses, or do you have to be a bit more than that? What are the other attributes you need to get these people and keep these people? Do you have to be an entertainer? Do you have to be what else do you have to be?
No entertainer, no BS. You gotta have results at the end of the day. It's like being a head coach in the NFL or any major sport. You have to win. So that's number one. And you have to, I find, the way I run my business, you have to be honest, accurate with your info. These clients, I mean, some of them are going to fly in for a race or even take time out of their busy schedule to watch a race. I want to be able to tell them accurately what's going to happen when the horse is going to run. And if I'm way off all the time, they're going to say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So you have to be accurate. You have to be honest. You have to run an efficient company, business, but you have to be a good horseman, have good feel. And, I establish good relationships individually with my clients. We don't have a lot of turnover, luckily. If we weren't winning, but we do. And we have to have the horses. We have an outstanding team, but the owners put up with a lot too. I mean, look at this. They're paying a bunch of bills and not running. They deal with, injuries and such. The horses aren't as sound as they used to be. And there's a lot of things going on within the industry that sometimes is up and down. And I'm really lucky. I just found that if I'm very straightforward with them and I'm very accurate with my information, look, be accurate how the horse is going to run. I can also be accurate in, hey, I've seen this injury before. This is what you need to do. And if I tell them, this is what you need to do, trust me, it's this surgeon or this layup facility or this, and this will be the outcome. When I'm right, it's just like winning a race. They're like, he knows what he's talking about because he said that would happen. So
what do you do in a situation where you have a big race coming up and your owner really wants to run in the race? You think the horse is in over their head. What do you say? They run in the race because you want to do what the owner wants to do. How honest are you in that situation? I don't think this horse fits, but we can run. What do you say?
I always am honest. So I tell them exactly what I think. And if I know that it's super important to them, I might not do it in a crushing way, but I'll make it be known where I stand on the situation. Thankfully, so I'm starting to see my career. Thankfully, I'm not comparing myself to Frankel at all, but I'm trying to. I run the program the same way. I'm trying to have dirt horses, turf horses. You can see a lot of similarities with what I'm trying to do. Homebred, sale horses, European horses, American horses, whatever. And the same thing goes with the relationship with the clients. When you're younger and starting out, you can get pushed around more. Now that we have a lot of success and we can tell them we have 15 Breeders' Cups, blah, 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 this and that, the clips, you can say, look, if you want to do that, that's fine. I know this is not going to work out. So those are the kind of conversations I kind of have. And I'll tell them when I'm not sure, because I'm not always right. So I'll say, I'm not really sure. So those relationships have actually evolved. Those conversations have evolved. They're not as like they were 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So now I don't rule with an iron fist, but I have fewer suggestion box.
Fewer pushback, maybe less pushback. Oh man, we could go on for hours.
You are a man entirely sure on his own ground, which is as it should be for somebody who's had 15 Breeders' Cup winners, 4 Eclipse Awards, a trainer of the horse of the year, and so on. But more than anything, you've been incredibly honest through the last hour and 13 minutes.
Yeah, well,
we've gone nicely over time.
Let's be honest here. Chad just wanted to dip in, on somebody else, say, hey, I just want to join it for a bit. And then, an hour and 13 later, thank you.
Careful what you wish for. Should Chad be a weekly guest? Well, we say yes, but, as I say, be careful what you wish for.
And thank you for the generous donation. Thank you.
Yes, you have been incredibly generous. You've laid the gauntlet down to all future guests with your incredibly generous donation to the 3 charities, breederscup.com/donate, Cocktails and Conversation, with you every week from now until Well, hopefully forever, Britney.
Hopefully. This has been fun. It keeps us together. I miss you.
I'm like my horses, right? I'm all dressed up with nowhere to go. I'm 3 martinis deep in Boca at 7:15.
Listen,
it's Camus time. It's Camus time, Chad.
It's quarter past midnight
I'm
here.
I'm looking for a race right now.
I'm sitting here wearing a smoking jacket, talking to two people thousands of miles away. It's crazy, but it works.
Guys, I've got sweatpants on. You guys are dressing up. You got to know you got nowhere to go. Sweatpants.
I just want to remind you of the 3 charities we're donating to over the course of this season.
Cup plug here, by the way.
Look at that Breeders' Cup
thing here.
Breeders' Cup today. Breeders' Cup and Drew Fleming, boss of Breeders' Cup, handed over a check for $25,000 to the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America, an organization devoted to the spiritual, emotional, physical, social, educational needs of the West within the horse racing industry. We're raising money also for 2 charities very close to Mark Tubridy's heart, but all of ours as well. The USBG Bartender Emergency Assistance Program and, of course, one other charity that we are donating to that Mark is extremely keen to promote. The Restaurant Workers Relief Program, a joint project from Maker's Mark and the Lee Initiative, a charitable organization formed by Chef Edward Lee in Louisville, because there are so many of those restaurants, bars, concessions at racetracks all across the country that will not be receiving any support between now and the time where we can let big crowds in to support the sport, whenever that may be. And wouldn't we love it, Chad, if that could be, who knows, sometime Saratoga, Kentucky Derby, who knows when. But
I'd love it. I love it. We're going to have a cocktail together when that'll happen. Every week it's going to be 3K to them. If they're not, tell me. I'm going to troll them. I'm going to savage them. I'm going to beat them up. I'm going to beat them up on Twitter a little bit. If it's me or whatever.
On the Twitter, that is maybe you.
Whatever it is, just let me know. Just call me. And I'll make sure 3K comes in a week for this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. This was great. The stories were wonderful. Thank you for those that sent in the questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to a lot of them, but keep sending them in next week. Who's our guest next week? Can we tease or do we not have it?
We have one guest next week. We're hoping for more.
Okay, then we won't tease it. We'll wait.
Entertainment. The man who, from this side of the pond, the man who was beaten this far by the man he calls Rob Baffert in the Breeders' Cup Classic, Jamie Osborne, is going to join us. He's been entertaining everyone on Twitter this week with his
staying up late.
Beautifully put together videos. I've managed. He's the only person in Britain I can persuade to stay up that late, and hopefully who knows, we might get one of the greatest dirt trainers of all time, according to Chad Brown on the show.
He is the greatest. And if you guys ever run into a little light episode or whatever.
You're back.
Britney, just slide into my DMs. Just slide into my DMs.
I can't like this happens.
Okay, just slide into my DMs. I'll be right on point with my martini. Bring it up a little bit if you need it.
Okay? Into the real Chad Browns, which we're not sure again.
Exactly, whoever that is.
I'm going to stay out of your DMs. I'm going to let Britney do the dirty work. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you every week from now to the end of time. Chad Brown, thank you very much.
Anytime.
Thank you. Good
Britney,
night, everybody.
Till next time.
Bye.
BreedersCup.com/donate. Cocktails and conversation. Back with you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.